Hi, Paul Sackis, Good News Planet. Speaking to Ken Biberaj. Hi, Ken. How are you?
Good to see you, Paul. Been a while.
Been a while. Ken is a buddy. Uh, when he was living up here in New York, and it has just continued. Moving down into what's that? Northern Virginia. Is that what they call that area?
It is, yeah.
As he's a managing director of a prominent company, and which is all over, I believe, all over the world. Savills, Savills. And tell us a little bit about that. And he's a do-gooder. Let's start straight out here. You know, working for feeding people, for all kinds of rights, and I'm very admired ever since we've known each other for some years. And Manhattan Chamber of Commerce. And he's a guy in the community who cares. Let's put it like that, and more than cares, does. So tell us a little bit about what you're up to. And he has a talk show, so I should shut up because he's doing better than I with his coffee time, or what do you call that show?
We call it Coffee with Ken, real original.
See, he got right to the point.
There you go. We got
Ken. Well, I have just the NASA. You know, it's a little smaller thing.
Well, listen, it's so good to see you. I mean, I think it's been over 10 years that we've known each other now. So, you know, from getting together at the Russian Tea Room or on the Upper West Side when I was running for city council, or afterwards with the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce, we had a great time in New York. Really enjoyed getting to know you better. And I think you were a pioneer in this effort, right? I mean, you always talk about good news, and that's kind of what we have tried to do over the last year with our conversation series, Coffee with Ken. But just to rewind for a second, we were in New York for a long time, loved it. But I'm from Northern Virginia, grew up here, went to college in DC. And 2017, you know, we had two boys and thought it made a lot of sense to come back home. So came back here, I joined Savills. So Savills is a global commercial real estate company. Domestically here in the US, we actually only represent tenants and occupiers of space. So what that means is, if you're a company, a nonprofit association, if you're leasing space or own space, we help you think through that. And that was always a great, you know, business. I always enjoyed it because I would work with the entrepreneurs and the founders and help them think through their real estate, how to save money. In the last year, as a result of COVID, all of those conversations just matter so much more. You know, companies and organizations across the country are thinking about their space, how to accommodate a more remote workforce, provide more flexibility, but also find ways to save money and think about the future. So it's a pretty interesting and quickly evolving time as organizations think through their real estate.
Yeah, by far. So you know, I mean, it's hard to let's say, I guess, obviously, though, you're making some predictions here. So for prediction number one is that enough people get vaccinated, that enough people feel, if they so desire, to go back, in quotes, to work at the office, in quotes. So do you think that's going to happen? Let's start with that.
Sure. With that, yes, right. I think at a high level, just to unpack that a little bit, it's all happening live time, and every organization is different. Some have found out that they can hire somebody in Wisconsin and be based in Virginia, and they're totally happy with them. There's a few things that have come out over the last year. Number one is trust. Employers have had to trust employees to do work, right? And what we've seen is that the trust factor has been successful, and that's led to productivity. So employees are meeting their benchmarks, they're accomplishing what they need to do. Organizations seem to be succeeding and have adapted to it. It's not equal for everybody. A lot of employees have had challenges with dealing with family and with childcare and dealing with technology issues. But for the most part, people have found a way to be productive, and that gives employers a lot of insight about how to think about their real estate. And now as we emerge out of COVID, the big kind of operative desire we're hearing from employees and tenants is flexibility and choice. So what that means is, employees want to be able to have a place to go. They want to be able to build relationships with their colleagues. If you're a younger member of a team, you want to be able to have FaceTime with the senior leadership. You want that mentorship, that camaraderie. You want to be able to collaborate in person. So all of that is creating a recognition that you can't just abandon your real estate completely. You shouldn't really just, get rid of your footprint. You need some type of space. What that space looks like, how it's created, what type of flexibility you give your employees. Maybe they only need to be in 3 days a week or every couple of days, or if they want to work from home one day, you can trust them and they can be productive. So the flexibility and choice will be an interesting thing that emerges in a new COVID reality as it comes to the workplace. But I think, especially in places like New York, I think you're going to see cities roar back. I think you're going to see young people, return to the cities. I think the new package passed, by the Biden administration and Congress last week will have a big impact on helping restaurants and other organizations kind of get back up on their feet. So all of that will create an ecosystem and an environment where people want to be outside. They're going to want to go out and socialize again. And because of that, there's a bit of a FOMO effect, right? If you're not in the office and your colleagues are, and your teams are, you're going to kind of want to get back in there. So I think some groups are realizing, because this has gone on so long, right? Like if this ended 6 months ago, people were like, no, we could definitely be more remote, but it's gone on so long. I think people are pretty eager to get back to some type of normalcy and some type of environment where they can see each other and collaborate a little bit more.
Well, I'll just say, because as you're speaking, I'm thinking about my own personal career, right? I was a CBS, PBS, and Channel 13. And then when I left WNYC, I started my own company in 1985. I'm like an old guy here. The Chinese put me in business doing multicultural marketing and advertising. I started in my house here, my home here, Upper West Side and West 80th Street. I never wanted to run a business out of my house, because I actually then two people left Channel 13 and to come to work with me to do ethnic marketing. We got a little bit of business and, we were able to make something go. But I never wanted to roll out of bed. In fact, I never had a computer in my house. I didn't want a computer in my house because then I'm a fanatic. I'd be working 24/7 and I don't want to work 24/7. And if I'm divorced now, but when I was back to my family life, I mean, what am I going to do? Are you going to play with your kid or are you going to go onto the computer? I think it stinks. So personally, I think a lot of people do not want to live their business career and they want to leave it at the office. Yeah. And it's almost disrespectful. I'd love to get back to it. It's almost disrespectful to bother somebody after 7 o'clock unless it's an emergency.
No, yeah. And then people are finding themselves, they're working around the clock. I mean, there is no separation. There is no buffer. You used to have like the transition time of a 20-minute, 30-minute commute. You could read a book, listen to some music, kind of unplug. Now it's like from the living room to the dining room to the bedroom to the remote classroom for your kids. It's tough. I mean, it's all encompassing, so I think that's a real thing. I think people are wanting some separation. It's been a tough year.
Yeah. So, and I believe it will happen, but of course, as we think, slowly, I mean, if somebody bought a house and I had a place way out there in Montauk, but and the Hamptons, they say was its best year ever.
Listen, there was a lot of people who do well, and that this has been a pretty unique opportunity for them, right? They have a big house, they can have a second home, right? But a lot of the population doesn't have that, right? A lot of younger people don't have that. A lot of people who were really affected by COVID, because the impact has been completely disproportionate for lower income communities of colors, like they don't have those resources. And a lot of those communities are the frontline workers that show up every day to kind of keep our hospitals going, keep our schools going. So I think it's worth kind of pausing and recognizing the impact this year has had on different communities, right? Like, we may have been fine and, we were in Virginia now, so we have a little bit more space, right? But you got to recognize that it hasn't been equal for everybody. So as you think about returning to the office, if you're kind of thinking like, hey, it was great for me last year, I'm just going to open the doors and everyone needs to be butts back in seats. That may be a little harder for some of your workforce, and you need to be proactive about having conversations, engaging, hearing, listening, and implementing plans that help everybody that work for you.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. I was using the Hamptons as an example. I mean, if you can afford a house, I mean, I bought it a long, long time ago, $100,000. So, it's a little different deal. But, if you can afford that lifestyle, then good odds, I've said to most people that they still have an apartment in New York.
Yeah.
They still have an apartment that they're going to go, and they're still going to go to an office. Or, it's good, but it's a few, it's a few people. So there's only a few houses out there. So
yeah,
because they're
the vacation home business, the hotel business now all of a sudden for some of these beach towns, I mean, has skyrocketed. I mean, people aren't traveling and flying to Europe, so they need a place to go and unwind. And
yes,
you hop on Airbnb and stuff. I mean, those places are flying.
It's a good thing. One of the areas that I wonder about, that you're involved with is the nonprofit. So how do you see that scenario for a nonprofit organization?
Yeah, listen, it's been a tough year, right? I mean, if folks have had to tighten their own belts, have had lost jobs, have had family members step back from the workforce because of, they've been laid off or because they have to care for family or care for loved ones, it's been a challenging time for individuals. So that has an impact on just broader philanthropy and giving and so on and so forth. And the need is greater than ever, right? So it's this double whammy where all of these organizations from City Harvest and the Food Bank and Robin Hood Foundation and educational advocacy groups need more resources than ever because the need is that much greater, and has created a very challenging environment for them to get the resources to be able to implement it. So on that one side, the kind of traditional nonprofit advocacy, it's been very hard. I mean, we spend a lot of time with organizations on the real estate front trying to find cost savings. What can we do to kind of help them alleviate some of the financial burden they have? So we're working on that just professionally on the day job. But the last bucket that's been kind of interesting is a greater recognition on the part of corporations that they need to step up. So one of the kind of things that I think accelerated this year is the responsibility and role that the private sector plays. Trust in the private sector is at an all-time high, much higher than in Congress and media and everything else in our society. So these leaders in business, I think, have appropriately recognized that they have a role to play and are developing more forward-thinking and progressive social impact plans. They're thinking more appropriately about direct corporate responsibility. What can they do to make society better? And they're helping to alleviate some of the gap that exists right now from individuals helping philanthropy. So, it's a broader recognition that you need government, you need the private sector, and you need the nonprofits working together to help address a lot of the societal issues that we have. Otherwise, the recovery is going to be that much harder for everyone.
You've been awarded in this corporate social responsibility. You got some awards when you're younger, 40-ish guy, which I guess you still are. I don't know, but how did you see that as such an important aspect of a business? Because you're a leader in it. I mean, a leader of the.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah.
I mean, that's it, but that's a DNA. There's some DNA to be a good corporate. It's a DNA to be a good citizen, period.
Yeah, no, agreed. Listen, I think part of it is recognizing that diversity matters, right? And it's not just diversity of ideas, it's diversity of talent, of geography, of race and ethnicity. You want to have a diverse workforce, and you want to listen and engage your workforce. That will lead to getting more ideas and innovation and developing an appropriate plan for the role your company can play, right? So even going back in my career, even when we were involved in the Russian tea room, we were very forward thinking about the role and responsibility we have with the Food Bank of New York. We embraced that. We got involved in NYC and Company and the Broadway League. We saw certain things where we could add value, not necessarily from a monetary perspective all the time, but also just from a brand perspective. Where can we align our brand and our values to be a resource to other organizations to help lift all boats? And then at the chamber, we were very focused on trying to lean on our nonprofit and corporate partners to work together to address some of the bigger issues in Manhattan at the chamber. And now as a real estate person, I try to focus on clients that happen to be nonprofits and associations. And then you mentioned our coffee series, right? So it's in the DNA, right? Like I have a public policy background. So I have this coffee series that we started at the beginning of the pandemic. And not once do we ever really talk about real estate. I never talk about market reports. We're talking about issues. We're talking about climate change. We're talking about the inequitable impact that the pandemic is having on people. We're using, a limited platform, right? I'm not on CBS or anything, but I have some people that follow and listen, and we're trying to talk about important stuff. So everybody as an individual can use your own platform, your network, as an opportunity to talk about issues you care about and put it out there in front of an audience. And because
we froze for a second here.
So.
Oh, you froze there for a second.
Oh, sorry. I said, so hopefully people listen in here and it provides an impact. So
it's buffering there for a second, but it was a beautiful picture of you, though, Ken. So yeah, I froze again.
I know. I just keep it frozen.
So last question. All right, because you got a busy day, and we've been involved with Peace, the International Day of Peace, for many 20 years. September 21st. And I asked a lot of people, what does peace mean for them? And you, I really want to hear from, because you're somebody who I admire, and somebody who others so do as well. I think you said a word there that I think is part of your success story, and that's be listen. You're a smart guy. Someone taught you early on it's good to listen to somebody and then speak.
Yeah.
What does peace mean to you?
I honestly think that's part of the answer, right? I think peace is the opportunity and environment where people can speak freely and others will listen to them. And it's the ability to kind of pause and hear each other. And I think when you look around the United States today, we have a lot of disruption, we have a lot of conflict, tension, we have a lot of hate. And so much of that, I think, stems from our inability to freely and appropriately communicate with each other, to hear each other, to understand each other. I think social media broadly and just media in general has helped kind of harden these positions that people have. And we're almost absorbing different sets of facts and different sets of content. And that makes it harder to have conversations where we can speak and listen. So frankly, I think, getting to peace requires a little bit of that.
What a smart guy. Ken, thanks so much. Thank you a lot.
So good to see you. Looking forward to doing it next time at Zabar's.
There we go. Hey.